Let's set the record straight. Black people didn't just influence American music, we built it. From the call and response carried from West African villages to Southern plantations to the sample beats in today's hip hop. Our sound is the foundation, it's the blueprint, it's the soul. Welcome back to Creative Birthright. This is a journey through rhythm, resistance, and renaissance. Through voices that didn't just sing, they shifted culture. This isn't just a history lesson. This is a celebration, a tribute to Black artists who created not a genre, but almost every genre that defines American music. The drummers, the vocalists, the storytellers, the innovators, the risk takers, the ones who channeled spirit into sound. From spirituals to jazz, country to funk, rock to hip hop, we built it. Black music isn't a genre, it's a gift, a guide, a global force. Let's start at the beginning. And to do so, we have to travel back to West Africa, where most Black Americans find their roots. And when our ancestors were human trafficked across the Atlantic, they brought their culture and sound. In West African societies, music was communal, spiritual, and ancestral. The drum wasn't just an instrument, it was a form of communication. But when enslaved Africans made it to the Americas, their drums were taken, banned on plantations out of fear, because our rhythm meant resistance. So we adapted. We used hand claps, foot stomps, and our voices. We sang spirituals that sounded like hymns but held double meanings. Wade in the Water told you how to successfully escape enslavement, and Follow the Drinking Gourd pointed toward the North Star and freedom. Black women led ring shouts in hidden groves. Children carried songs passed down like heirlooms. Spirituals were our first distinctly African American music genre, and they laid the foundation for everything that followed. And if spirituals were the cries of bondage, gospel was the sound of deliverance. In the early 20th century, as Black communities built churches after emancipation, a new sound emerged. One rooted in praise, but layered with blues melodies and personal expression. This was gospel music, sacred, soulful, and deeply Black. Thomas A. Dorsey, a former bluesman, is often called the father of gospel for blending secular blues structures with sacred religious lyrics. He penned gospel classic Take My Hand, Precious Lord, which became a favorite of the civil rights movement. Mahalia Jackson's powerful contralto made her the genre's most iconic voice. She brought church to Carnegie Hall and marched with Dr. King. Clara Ward, Sally Martin, and the Roberta Martin singers created the gospel choir model still used today. And then there was Sister Rosetta Tharpe, who blurred the line between sacred and secular, playing gospel with an electric guitar and fierce energy. She was gospel, rock, and rebellion all in one. Gospel gave us vocal power and emotional depth. Without gospel, there is no Aretha, no Sam Cooke, and no soul as we know it. Just like gospel, the blues was born in the aftermath of slavery, out of sweat-soaked cotton fields, sharecroppers' grief, and the deep pain of surviving Jim Crow. The blues is first and foremost a survival story. It gave voice to what had long been silenced, and even though it's not mentioned often, women were among its first truth tellers. Ma Rainey, called the mother of blues, began performing in minstrel shows in vaudeville circuits before the turn of the century. She fused Southern folk sounds with raw, unfiltered emotion. Bessie Smith, the empress of the blues, brought this new music to national prominence with recordings that sold millions in the 1920s. Meanwhile, Charlie Patton and Blind Lemon Jefferson were pioneering Delta and Texas blues styles. The sound varied by region, but the soul remained the same. Blues was about making pain beautiful, digestible, and sometimes even danceable. The blues laid the sonic and emotional groundwork for nearly every American genre that followed. From jazz to rock to hip hop, it showed us how to make storytelling raw and deeply personal. Jazz is what happened when the structure of classical music collided with the soul of the blues. Emerging in New Orleans at the turn of the century, jazz was born in Black communities that were musically multilingual. French opera, Caribbean rhythms, gospel chords, and African percussion all danced in the streets together. Cornet's Buddy Bolden is often credited as the first real jazz musician, and his band was playing something in the early 1900s that had never quite been heard before. Jelly Roll Morton later claimed he invented jazz by blending ragtime with improvisation, but Louis Armstrong gave jazz its voice. His horn, scat singing, and melodic reinvention made him a global icon. And Ella Fitzgerald gave jazz its elegance and vocal agility, while Mary Lou Williams arranged and composed for big bands led by a man like Duke Ellington. Jazz is an intellectual art form, complex, improvisational, and unpredictable. And within it, you find freedom and liberation, because jazz has always been about finding your own rhythm and sound outside of the box. If blues was the cry and gospel was the prayer, rhythm and blues was the swagger. R&B rose in the 1940s as jazz began to cool and new sounds took over Black dance halls. Ruth Brown, commonly known as Miss Rhythm, brought Atlantic Records to fame and laid the foundation for what we now call modern R&B. But when you add gospel's passion to R&B's groove, you get soul music, a genre that spoke directly to the Black experience in the Civil Rights era. Ray Charles merged church and the juke joint in songs like What Did I Say? And Sam Cooke delivered silky vocals and protest anthems in equal measure. And then came Aretha Franklin, the queen of soul, demanding respect in a voice forged in the church and refined in Detroit studios. Soul wasn't just music, it was a declaration. And as soul evolved, it birthed funk, disco, and modern R&B, a whole lineage of feeling, groove, and voice. Long before Elvis ever shook a hip, a Black woman was tearing up stages with an electric guitar. Sister Rosetta Tharpe, gospel trailblazer and guitar virtuoso, was performing blistering reverb-heavy solos in the 1930s and 40s. Her 1944 hit, Strange Things Happening Every Day, is widely considered the first gospel recording to cross over to the R&B charts. And some historians credit it as the first true rock and roll record. By the early 1950s, Black artists like Chuck Berry, Little Richard, and Bo Diddley were fusing blues, gospel, and swing into something loud, electric, and new. Chuck Berry wrote the blueprint: fast-paced guitar riffs, teenage lyrics, and that iconic duck walk. Little Richard brought the flamboyance and falsetto, screaming soul into rock's DNA. Then came Big Mama Thornton, who recorded Hound Dog years before Elvis did. Even though she sold fewer records, she gave the song its bite. And when Elvis Presley arrived, he was marketed as a king, but his legacy was built by Black artists. The sounds, the moves, the rhythm, the entire aesthetic of rock and roll came from Black performers who rarely saw the same stages, charts, or checks. Now let's move on to a topic that is a little more controversial. And what many people don't know or don't want to know is that country music has Black roots too. The banjo It comes from West Africa, brought by enslaved Africans and adapted into Appalachian culture. Early Black string bands played fiddle tunes, work songs, and blues hybrids that would become known as hillbilly music, a term that once applied to Black and white Southern styles. DeFord Bailey, a harmonica prodigy, was one of the first stars of the Grand Ole Opry in the 1920s. And Arnold Schultz, a Black fiddler from Kentucky, directly influenced the finger-picking style of Billy Monroe, the so-called father of bluegrass. Leslie Riddle, a Black musician and song collector, taught white country stars like A.P. Carter hundreds of songs, many learned from Black communities. Later, Linda Martell broke barriers as the first Black woman to perform at the Grand Ole Opry, and Charlie Pride became a country icon in the 1970s. Country music was never all white. It was made that way by theft and erasure. But the sound, that's ours too. And in 2024, Beyonce released Cowboy Carter to remind everyone of this and to reclaim country music as a Black genre. And I will say it again just to be abundantly clear. Country, that's Black music. All right, now let's move on to less controversial topics. And if soul was the heart, funk was the hips. In the late 1960s, James Brown, the godfather of soul, pivoted toward shorter, punchier, dance-driven songs like Papa's Got a Brand New Bag. He stripped the music down to its bare groove and emphasized the one, the downbeat that hits hardest. Sly and the Family Stone fused psychedelic rock with soul and funk, bringing the multiracial, multi-gender band to the front of a genre known for movement and protest. Betty Davis, once married to Miles Davis, redefined funk fashion, feminism, and sonic rebellion with her raw vocals and genre-bending production. Then came George Clinton and the P-Funk mothership, which brought with it Afrofuturism rooted in Black liberation, and bass lines that still anchor today's hip-hop. Funk was freedom on the floor, in the beat, and in the body. Before it was glitter and glamour, disco was political. It rose from the underground clubs of 1970s New York, spaces created by Black, Latinx, and queer communities as safe havens from a hostile world. These clubs gave birth to a new sound that was lush, danceable, and relentlessly joyful. Donna Summer became the genre's queen, her voice sultry and transcendent. Gloria Gaynor's I Will Survive became an anthem of resilience. Sylvester, a gender non-conforming Black singer with a soaring falsetto, brought gospel drama to the dance floor and challenged norms at every turn. Behind the scenes, Black musicians like Nile Rodgers of Chic wrote and produced many of disco's biggest hits, creating grooves that are still sampled in pop and hip-hop today. Disco was protest through joy, and when it rose too high, white America pushed back with Disco Demolition Night in 1979, a thinly veiled act of racism and homophobia. But disco never died. It evolved, and it's still here. And then came hip-hop. Born in Black neighborhoods, abandoned by policy, starved by poverty, and policed into silence. In 1973, at a back-to-school party in a Bronx rec, DJ Kool Herc extended the percussive breaks of funk records, looping the part of the song that made people dance. The breakbeat was born. MCs began rhyming over these beats, first to hype the crowd, then to speak truth. Grandmaster Flash introduced turntable techniques that made the DJ a virtuoso. And when the Sugar Hill Gang released Rapper's Delight in 1979, hip-hop hit the mainstream, and women helped shape the genre from the start. MC Sha-Rock, hip-hop's first female MC, and Roxanne Shante, who set off the legendary Roxanne Wars with her sharp-tongued verses. Hip-hop gave Black youth a mic and a system built to mute them. And what started on sidewalks and subways now shapes global culture. From protest to party, fashion to film, hip-hop is our modern griot. While hip-hop was being born on the East Coast, something just as powerful was happening in the Midwest. In the abandoned warehouses and queer Black clubs of Chicago, DJs like Frankie Knuckles began spinning soulful disco tracks with drum machines and synthesizers, creating long, hypnotic mixes that offered escape and transcendence. They called it house music, named after the warehouse club where Knuckles was resident DJ. It was deeply rooted in Black queer joy and sonic spirituality. This was church after dark. Soulful vocals, pulsing beats, and a sense of release. Larry Heard brought emotion and melody to house with tracks like Can You Feel It? Meanwhile, Jesse Saunders' 1984 record On and On is widely credited as the first official house music recording. Like gospel, house was about spiritual elevation, but it happened on the dance floor through sweat, strobe lights, and the freedom you find when you let go and let the music take over. This isn't just music history. It's a testimony to Black creative genius. It's the laughter between verses, the grief in the chords, the joy that refuses to be quiet. It's your grandmother's hum, the church solo, the bedroom studio, the cipher on the corner. It's the line we draw from then to now to what's next. So if we celebrate what has always been true, we gave the world a sound, not just a sound, but many sounds. And no matter how many hands have touched it, the roots, the origins, the sound remains ours. We honor Sister Rosetta Tharpe, not Elvis. We lift Rainey, not just Muddy Waters. We say the names of Sylvester, Linda Martell, Betty Davis, and Frankie Knuckles alongside the legends they inspired. Because the truth is, every beat you've ever moved to, every hook you've ever hummed, every genre you thought you knew, we made that. And we're still making, remaking, and innovating it. And I wanted to take this moment to honor every artist who paved the way and passed us the mic and created sounds that helped us process our grief, explore our pain, get lost in joy, and reflect our truth back to us. And I'm not just telling their story, I'm encouraging us all to carry it forward. And now I want to hear from you. Which artists, songs, or memories shaped the soundtrack of your life? Drop their names and stories in the comments, and let's give them their flowers together. Because this isn't just a history lesson, it's a celebration, and you are a part of it. All right, that's all I have for you today. But make sure you hit that like button on the way out. I'll see you in the next video.